Hi everyone, let's go over my bullish and bearish Elliott Wave scenarios on Bitcoin, starting on the low time frame with this complex sideways structure in a WXY with a flat in W. X is a complex structure and then either a zigzag in wave Y in a 5-3-5 ABC or a flat structure in wave Y in an a 3-wave A, 3-wave B and a 5-wave C to the downside. For wave Y, the common target area is between the 0.618 and the 1.236, taken from the high to the low of W to the high of wave X, giving us an area between 41.5k and 38.7k, with the most common target area being between the 1 and the 1.236, which is between 39.8k and 38.7k. And we do have some additional support over here, being the yellow box between 38.6k and 39k. If we then zoom into the two scenarios that I have on my chart over here, it all depends on how we are counting this structure to the downside. Starting with the diagonal, which was posted this morning by John in the Discord group. He posted this picture over here where he was looking for that potential WXY with that inside wave Y, an ABC with an expanding diagonal in wave A, 3-wave B, and then a wave C to the downside, finishing Y and a move towards the upside. So if we then look for a potential expanding diagonal here, then all of the waves in this diagonal are zigzags, and then an ABC, corrective 2, ABC, corrective 4, and then another ABC to the downside for a wave 5, finishing wave A as well. Then we would expect a 3-wave corrective structure to the upside of B, where B is not allowed to take this high over here at 44.4k, after which we then expect a wave C to the downside. If we go to the flat scenario, then we are looking for this structure to be a 3-wave move in then a W zigzag, X, and potentially another zigzag to the downside in then a wave Y, finishing wave A. And then we have a 3-wave structure in A, then we can expect a 3-wave structure in wave B, which then most commonly is a zigzag to the upside in a 5-3-5 to take the highs that we have here as well at about 45k, and then look for a sharp C towards the downside. For this wave B, the yellow target box over here is very interesting. We have some solid resistance in there between 45.2 and 46k, and then we're looking for that wave C to the downside to potentially take the lows we have here and also reach that yellow target box. If we look at the second scenario in this range, we're looking for an ABC and then a 5-3-5 wave structure, which is a zigzag to the downside, where most commonly wave C takes the low of wave A in a zigzag, 5-3-5, where the most common target for wave C is between the 1 and the 1.236, taken from the high to the low of A to the high of B, which gives us a target between 40k and 38.9k, which again is in nice confluence with that golden target box over here. A wave C, however, can extend to much lower prices, like to the 1.618, which is sitting here at 37.2k. And you also see I have some additional support areas here between 37.7k and 36.4k. Now in this particular scenario, we are then looking for a 5-wave structure to the downside in a wave C. So we want to see an impulsive move from the high to the downside, meaning we want to see a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or a potential leading diagonal. I have two scenarios to share with you about this local structure which could lead to a wave C. The first one is then this double 1-2 over here on the chart, or potentially a single 1-2 and then a wave 1-2 down. But the reason this scenario, also this double 1-2, but also a wave 1-2 and then a 3 down for me has lower probabilities, is because in a single 1 and then a 2, 3, this wave 2 is incredibly long in time compared to wave 1, lowering the probabilities of a wave 2, and also wave 2 is then a weird structure here which is very difficult to count as a 3-wave structure in a wave 2 as well. So that is why over here I have a double 1-2, which also is not great because the second wave 2 reached the 886. The first one would then be here, a wave 1 to the downside, complex sideways structure in wave 2, not a wave 1 to the downside, zigzag or complex structure in wave 2, but it reached the 886 taken from the high to the low, and the 886 is a rare target for a wave 2 and a common target for a wave B or a wave X, so that lowers the probabilities of this move over here being a wave 2, which therefore lowers the probabilities of a bigger wave 3 to the downside. Now if we do get a wave 3 to the downside, then well, a wave 3, especially a wave 3 of a bigger wave 3, should have the highest, most impulsive volume, right? Over here, we can see at the moment that the volume in this drop is lower than the volume we had over here. That's not what you want to see. You want to see strong continuation, impulsive move, much lower prices. Of course, we are not in this business to catch any knives, so we're not going to try and catch the low and get a nice picture for Twitter, you know. What we're looking for is proof of support locally for then a potential bounce towards the upside, whatever that is for you. Maybe some local bullish CVD divergences or RSIs, stochastic candlestick patterns, or other confluences that I have over here, which I'll show you in a second. Something to go against this potential scenario, but the probabilities for this at the moment are not great. Now a second scenario here is then the diagonal, which then either is the end of a C or a wave 1. More about that in a second. The diagonal here is the same, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? All of the waves are then zigzag structures. However, all of the waves being a zigzag structure is possible in a wave C and then a wave A here. Wave A, B, C up, or a wave 1 in a leading diagonal. So both in a leading and an ending diagonal, all of the waves can be zigzag structures. But that's interesting because if we think about a potential ABC 535, first of all, it is very rare, by the way, that a wave C in a zigzag does not take the low of wave A. That is very uncommon, so that lowers the probabilities this move is the end of a wave C, increasing the probabilities that a diagonal would be this diagonal here would be a wave 1 in that case, right? But it is nonetheless a potential possibility that at least I want to mention here in this particular video. Now what's also interesting is that if we count this move to the downside as a 5-wave structure and then a potential diagonal, the move for a wave C is pretty much the same as for the WXY. Here we count an A, B, C in the WXY and then a move up, and in a wave C we're counting simply 1, 2, and then we're looking for much lower prices, preferably in then a wave 3 to the downside, where of course this is your target area of a wave C in yellow. However, it can extend to lower prices, and especially if this is your wave 1 and you get a wave 2, then a wave 3 commonly moves to the 1.618 trend-based fib extension. Now let's say this is the high and the low is in for the sake of the example, and we move up, right, for a wave 3, then the 1.618 is already here, target for a wave 3, and then a 1, 2, 3. The 1.618 is already in this area, so we could definitely visit the lower edge of this box or even the 1.618 as mentioned earlier at lower prices. If we look at this range here, then I've been mentioning the levels of interest in this range for a while now. Over here we have the daily above, of course the double top here as well. The daily now where we found support 42,266, right, very nice indeed. Little bit of a reaction just below the value area low, and then 41 to 41.3k is interesting with a bit of support we have over here as well. And below this range we get towards the target boxes like mentioned earlier, and above the range as well. If we look at the CVD divergences, prices continuously still building bullish CVD divergences over here, the bigger one, but also more locally, quote unquote locally, because we are on a 1-hour time frame. We also still have bullish CVD divergences with this drop, higher low in price, lower low on the CVD, where the target of this more local bullish CVD divergence is this high, and of the bigger one are the highs over here. So if I'm thinking about a potential 1-2-1-2 for much lower prices to the downside in an impulse, right, a wave C, right, 1-2-1-2, big move down, what I prefer to see is big bearish CVD divergences, right, preferably with the high over here, this one, or at least with this one, but we don't, right? We don't here have bearish CVD divergences. We don't here have bearish CVD divergences. Yes, we had bearish CVDs here for a bit. That played out, but it's not as big, right, compared with the bullish CVD divergences that we have. And at the moment, more locally, things are neutral. CVD is best used on the local time frames, like the 5-minute, 15-minute, maybe 30-minute as well, everything below the 1 hour basically. And that is now neutral because we made a new low, so we have to wait what happens over here locally as well, on top of support, of course. And if we lose that support, then we do have the value area low as mentioned just below at 41,954. So if we then finally look at the probabilities of the different scenarios in this range, then on the low time frame in general, we are still eyeing lower prices. But if we then look at the different Elliott Wave scenarios and their probabilities, then currently the WXY is increasing in probabilities, where we either look for a zigzag or a flat in a wave Y here. But in both cases, we would be looking for a bit of a retracement to the upside. Of course, price can still move to the value area low. That's no problem, right? Or even a bit lower, all fine. But eventually, we're looking for a wave B retracement to the upside, either a zigzag 3-wave structure or at least zigzag locally for a wave B down, or a bigger 3-wave structure for a bigger B in a flat and then a move to the downside. The second probability, or the second highest probability scenario, I suppose, is then the wave C to the downside. I mean, I should actually just say lower probability scenario. WXY, higher probability. This is the more like lower probability at the moment, right? Based on current info, where this looking like this doesn't look like a double 1-2 or a single 1-2 for much lower prices already. Also still expecting a bit of a bounce, where this diagonal could then be a wave 1, 2 and then a wave 3. So the price action of this move is quite similar to a WXY and an ABC, but then of course preferably we want to see some weakness, bearish CVD, all that stuff, right? So this is still a scenario we keep in mind, but also here we would then expect a bit of a bounce before continuation. And over here on the third place, not the fourth, on the third place, we expect a bullish continuation, which would be quite a rare occasion in an A, B, and then a C, for then a move to the upside. That has the lowest probability at the moment from an Elliott Wave point of view. And on the micro here, which basically means this local structure, we're looking for a bounce to the upside and at least a continuation of this range over here. So sideways price action over here, or looking for price to take these highs for then a move towards the downside. I hope this video was helpful or valuable to you. Please check out the most recent educational video I've made about the best trading indicator you can use in my opinion, which is the CVD. And for now, thanks for watching and subscribing, and I'd like to see you at the next one. Bye bye.